I'm catching you on the cold open, just so you know. Wiping off the glasses like that. You a little.
Well, yeah. I never understood the whole thing about breathing on your glasses to wipe them off because there's more shit in your breath than anything else. Seems like that's a bad idea. It'd be like cleaning your car with mud puddle water.
Do you remember when we had to wear masks everywhere and like just how awful your own breath smelled? We all learned that.
It was the worst. Probably improved my oral hygiene a great deal because I realized how shitty things were.
Oh,
horrible. I carried dental floss things around with me all the time. But you know what? Don't do that anymore. So don't
I
come
did
near
that
me.
on a flight this weekend because my kids and wife were all sick, and I had tested negative like 4 times. Like I'm like, okay, and I'm still fine. So so I was trying to just be courteous just in case, and I wore a mask.
Sure. Yeah.
And I hadn't for a long time, and it was just like, oh my god, it's like flashbacks. Oh.
Yeah.
And then
I still
some guy on the flight called me woke. I'm just kidding. That didn't happen.
Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terplex Ag. Visit TerplexAg.com.
Jon Miller, Chris Williams from the Channel Seed Studios. It's Miller and Williams, presented by Wild Rose Casino and Hotel. 3 locations in Iowa, 3 times the fun. You'd rather be here. This is Iowa Everywhere.
Hello, friends. Happy New Year. Been a while since we've been in the studio here. My name is Chris Williams. I'm joined by Jon Miller. It is Miller and Williams. We are in the Channel Seed Studios. Happy 2024. Not a happy start to the new year for Jon Miller's Iowa Hawkeyes, and that's what we are here to do today, to discuss that beatdown. It's still the Florida Citrus Bowl to me, baby. I was trying to explain this to my wife. Like, she's like, well, I thought we were in the Cheez-It Bowl talking about Iowa State. I'm like, no, well, that's a different game. She's like, well, they run around like that Pop-Tart was. And I was like, yeah, it's the same ownership. It's really hard to explain. They're just like moving their thing around. I'm like, this is the Citrus Bowl. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
How are you, Jon?
The Pop-Tarts, I'm good, buddy. I was envious of the Pop-Tarts. That would have been some really good media swag because I'm a lifelong devotee of the brown sugar Pop-Tart. Great stuff.
Interesting.
But then again, I like the spicy, zangy, zesty Cheez-Its myself as well. So loved them both.
Actually, I brought back on a flight, and it's hard to do, my commemorative Cheez-It box commemorating Iowa State versus Clemson from that game. Because it's cool. It's like, when else am I going to get like, that's something when I die, like, my grandkids are going to be like, what in the hell? Oh, yeah. Grandpa, he was at he's covering that game that one year, right? Like, that's a cool thing.
You probably have dozens and dozens and dozens of really unique things that nobody can buy that you've just got from things like that. And I had that too. And when we moved to Oklahoma back in 2013 from Des Moines, I gave every poster, everything I had, every trinket, I gave them to a friend of mine, Steve Kester. And he has Iowa schedule posters dating back to like the early 1980s that I gave him, that I was given those by the wife of my barber as a child who died. Anyway, so you're loaded with the trinkets. I know exactly what you have. And I was actually going to ask you, because you know, before we started this, you had to step away for a few minutes. And I was kind of looking around your office, and I like, is that like a really cool tricked out train collection that you have behind you? Is that a bunch of choo-choo trains?
No, those are diecast race cars.
Oh, even better. Yeah, those are cool. Do the kids ever pull those down?
No, my kids know that that's where Daddy brings out the switch.
Go get me that Willis switch, honey. It's time to take your whooping.
So here's my thing with that. I swear we'll get into the game. Speaking of Iowa, because I have really cool Hawkeye memorabilia up here. I don't have it all displayed, but my uncle was a crazed Iowa fan.
Right.
And he has the old Coca-Cola bottles from all the Iowa bowl games in like the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
Like the glass ones. And then he has the rocks glasses from every Iowa bowl game in the 80s and 90s that I got when he died. Well, so when he died, I'm going through like, he didn't have any kids, so it's kind of on me in this sense. And my dad, like his brother, and like we're just going through all this stuff, and he left me all of his race cars. And it got so my dad and I have always had a little smaller collection. And then when he died, it kind of like got my itch going again. So I started buying ones that
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Someday, somebody in my life is going to have, because I have them all now, and they are in a storage unit in Ankeny, and all needed to be gone through when I have time. I have tens of thousands of NASCAR diecasts, along with Iowa Hawkeye. There was somebody's going to know this, and you might too, John. Some company in eastern Iowa made Iowa Hawkeye like diecast cars. They are not in business anymore. These things are antiques. I bet I have 100 of them in this storage unit in Ankeny. And it's one of those deals.
You said tens of thousands?
Of NASCAR diecast, yes.
Wow.
Boxes upon boxes. I had to buy a storage unit. It's the only way I could store these things.
That's insane, dude. That's insane.
But he's got all these Iowa ones. Like, it's like, here's a Iowa Hawkeye Ford Mustang. Here's a coupe. And it's like they're old school. They've got the old like Tiger Hawk on them. Not the Tiger Hawk, the old Hawkeye. I mean, I'm thinking really old school.
The 1970s era Hawk.
Yeah. And it's the rocks glasses are really cool, especially the Rose Bowl ones. Like those things are, if I were an Iowa fan, like I would think, and it's one of those deals where it's like, I bet you I could sell them for a hell of a lot of money, but I don't know if I want to do that.
No.
If I put those things up on Twitter, somebody would take them off my hands.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I wish I hadn't given all my collection away in hindsight, but you know what? I know that Steve.
I have 2 boxes over there with every credential and all that, and it is a total mess. At some point, maybe I'll tear through those things. Anyways, we are Miller and Williams. We are presented by our friends at Wild Rose Casinos in Clinton, Emmitsburg, and Jefferson. Kelderman Manufacturing brought the Hawkeye Sunday program all year long. And that's with Jon Miller. And I just texted John today, and I was like, yeah, I don't think you're probably going to want to do this one alone. It's like I'm conflicted here because I really don't think today's outcome means anything for the future of the program, because it's like Brian's gone. Like this offensive coordinator hire, and I'm just questioning how much that even means, especially after watching today, where it's just like Tennessee has it's just backups across the board defensively for Tennessee. And you would think like, oh, it's his last game. Maybe they'll go out trying. And no, not really. Nothing changed. And then they bring John, the true freshman in. And he's bebopping and scatting all over the field like Tommy Frazier out there. And everybody's amped up about that.
Right.
The biggest takeaway I have, though, that means anything for this season, Iowa outscored 92-0 by ranked teams in the 2023 season. There you go. Put it on a tee for you.
Yeah, there's a couple more things I want to read out, and then I'll dive in. Brendan Stiles, my friend, tweeted out, Iowa was shut out 3 times this season. The last time Iowa was shut out 3 times in 1 year was 1972. I was 1 year old, and I'm going to be 53 in a couple of months. Matt Brown, Power 5 team shut out 3+ times in one season since 2000. Iowa this year. Rutgers in 2019, that Rutgers team went 2-10. 2016 Rutgers also went 2-10. 2008 Wazoo went 2-11. 2006 Duke 0-12. 2002 Baylor 3-9. 2001 Rutgers 2-9, and 2000 Baylor 2-9. Iowa went 10-4. which
That's wild.
Yay. Chris Vanini, Iowa's drive to 325 ends at 216 points. They needed to average 25 to save Brian's job. They ended up at 15.4, and they only scored more than 25 twice. And as we know, they got shut out 3 times. Someone named Sheehan Jayaraja, I'm not sure. Sorry, Sheehan. Iowa against 3 ranked opponents this year, as you mentioned, 92-0. They were outscored. They totaled 404 yards of offense in those 3 games. 404 total. And they averaged 134.7 yards in those 3 games, 1.9 yards per carry, 2.7 per play. And as he said, historic ineptitude. I would agree, Sheehan. And then this quote this was from Josh Dubow. Don't know him, but he's from the AP. Iowa's season finished with 1,220 more yards punting than the offense gained. And no other FBS team this season had more punting yards than offensive yards. Iowa had 1,220 more. So I'm glad that we're together today. So I didn't just talk and say the same stuff I've been saying after most of the games this year. Now I'll just do that together and we'll riff off of each other. Brian's done, not an offensive coordinator. The problem is the problems are worse than Brian, way worse. This is an antiquated system and scheme. It is unlikely to change a great deal next year. A lot of folks, and we'll probably talk about Marco Lainez a little bit, a lot of folks saw that. They're really excited. I would warn you, obviously do what you want to do. I wouldn't get too excited. Yeah. I don't think things are going to change, and your number 1 quarterback next year is a guy who will not be able to extend plays with his legs. Can I make an argument that
this Lainez should start over McNamara? Is that fair?
You could make it. Go ahead and give it a shot.
I don't know enough. I'm just saying, at least he can get out and move like that. But
right, we don't know enough about his arm. We don't know enough about his passing. He was basically put in, and Iowa's going empty on 1st and 2nd downs, which is, you know what? Don't do that. You're not going to win the game. When he came in, it was 28-0. You're dead. You're done. Run your offense. Let him run the offense. Don't put him back there in 4 wide, 5 wide, empty backfields when Tennessee's just going to pin their ears back and come back and get him. And yeah, he was effective scrambling. That's great, but that isn't an offense.
That's not what they're going to do either. No matter who the new coordinator is, they're not doing that.
No. He's running for his life is what that was. But it's nice to see that he can run. And again, I would never have another quarterback on the field of my college team if I were a coach who couldn't extend plays with his feet. And we know Cade McNamara next year won't be able to do that. So I'm already not excited about that. I'm excited Luke Lachey's coming back. Glad that Jay Higgins is coming back. Would be fun to see a couple more come back. But ultimately, this offensive line can't really run block all that well. They were decent this year in pass protection, but Iowa hasn't had an Iowa standard offensive line for probably 4 or 5 years at a minimum. And I don't know what they're going to do there. Iowa's going to return, a lot of production. That's great. And yes, they did win 10 games. And Kirk said afterwards, I read a quote from Adam Jacoby saying, I'd encourage everyone to step back. It was a 10-win season. We were the Big Ten West champs. Kirk is absolutely right. And I know that many of you listening, watching to this are going to say, yeah, John, I agree with him. And that's okay. It's okay to have that opinion. Me personally, listen, 10-win seasons, that's never going to be something that you totally don't respect and appreciate. But man, if you ask me, John, what are your 3 favorite plays from this year? I'd have to first sit down and think really hard because this season was such a boring, just trudge through the mud that I don't remember any of it. It all rolls together into an ugly miasma of pain and suffering from a sports fan's perspective. There's obviously real pain and suffering going on in the world, but I don't know, Chris. I don't know I don't have a ton of optimism. That's what happens when you get your ass kicked in a bowl game like that.
Well, I know the feeling.
You do, and I was watching some of the Iowa State fallout because I don't try to reply to that anymore because nobody, what am I doing there? But it's like, your quarterback had a bad game, wasn't a great day, and And it's interesting because Iowa's offense is what it is. We all, I went out. I was talking with my buddy Billy Love today. We decided to watch the game, and Linez came in.
His name's
and
Billy
I'm like,
Love.
Billy Love. He's a former quarterback, really good lifelong friend of mine. Just a football genius, really, and in his own mind. But we were talking about Linez, and I'm like, dude, we don't know if he can throw. And he looks at me stone cold sober and says, John, we know that Deacon Hill can't throw. I'm like, fair. Linez should have been in there the whole time. Deacon Hill's statistic, what did he have? 11 fumbles, 7 interceptions. I mean, horrible.
The thing of the Deacon Hill thing that is just mind-blowing. Deacon Hill's mere existence should disqualify this Bud Meyer guy from any consideration with the offensive coordinator position. Because
anyone who recommended Deacon Hill should be out.
Yeah. And he's still there. Deacon Hill was buried on the Wisconsin scout team.
Dude had Greyhound bus tickets to Fordham. He was
nobody else wanted this guy. Literally nobody else wanted this guy. And should we all? I was surprised at how the game went today for what it's worth, because I thought Tennessee was going to end up being one of those teams that really didn't want to be there. Ton of opt-outs, transfer, it screamed like a culture type deal for Iowa where they keep this thing close and they muddy it up. And I was dead wrong. And I got to thinking hindsight, why, they still have SEC athletes across the field, right? Should we at all be surprised that Deacon Hill looked that terrible against that team?
Oh, well, you would have thought that another few weeks of practice would have helped him out. He looked like the same guy that he's looked like all year long.
What are they doing, though? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting paid a lot of money. They miraculously won 10 games, which, okay. It's amazing that they won 10 games with the worst offense in the modern era of college football. So what are they doing? I don't know, but I don't really want to stick around to keep watching it. If at any point in time next year, Deacon Hill takes snaps, I'm done.
Big Deke energy. Wow.
I'm turning the game off, and I won't watch any more for that season. So you may want to have somebody warming up on the bench for the Instant Reaction podcasts next year.
What's interesting, though, is so Petrus is going to Utah State. And I don't know what Utah State is, but I certainly don't think that Petrus is in a spot where he just walks in and is the starter there. Let me ask you this.
I'm not familiar with their depth chart.
Could Deacon Hill play for anybody else in the country? I think the answer is no. And I would also say, even at a D2 level,
FBS, we agree it's not a chance.
Maybe FCS, a bad FCS program. But he's so inaccurate. He's so. Yeah, that's my whole point. When you're just stacking it up and looking at these guys.
And Kirk said this week,
your last two guys, and I'm throwing McNamara out because of the injury, right?
Right.
But maybe Petrus ends up getting the start at Utah State. I would be surprised. At that level in the Mountain West, you have a lot of athletes at quarterback that are just running around and making plays. That's a lot of what mid-major type football is. I would be surprised at this point, not knowing anything about their roster, if Deacon Hill or if Petrus is a starter. So my point is, your last two quarterbacks, literally, we don't think could play anywhere else in college football.
Correct. Yeah,
and
I think that's true. Utah State senior quarterback Levi Williams will skip senior season, so there will be an opening there next year. Whether or not Spencer can win, I hope he does. But it'd be good for him. I'm not rooting against it. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Again, but the thing about Deacon, I don't even like having these conversations because he's not good enough to play quarterback in the Big 10 or the Big 12 or any of them. But he is only doing he was given an opportunity. He'd be silly not to take it, and he took it. Then he was given an opportunity to play and continue to be trotted out there. What's he going to do? Coach, I feel like I'm hurting the team. Don't put me out. No. It's not going to happen. So none of this is like Deacon Hill personal slander. It's just objective analysis that he's not an FBS quarterback. And the fact that Iowa had him out there for 8 games as an FBS quarterback, or almost 8, or however many it was for Deacon, is an indictment of their quarterback development. And it's an indictment of their offensive program. It's just another indictment of what has already been indicted more times than, I won't go there, but it's indicting. It's horrible. And yes, Iowa's going to have a new offensive coordinator next year. I wish I had the optimism that that was going to change things. I will believe it when I see it because it's still Kirk's offense. My guess is Pat Vint is the one that kind of, he wrote about this. Maybe Pat Hardy also talked about it. I think the Joe Philbin as the offensive coordinator stuff, that's who the horse I would bet on. And if Joe Philbin is the offensive coordinator, now I know I'm going to say something I've been saying for 2 years and I've been wrong. I'll be right eventually. If Joe Philbin's the offensive coordinator, that almost makes me think that next year could be the last ride, but I've been wrong about that so many times, I probably should stop talking about it. An old buddy who was there when he started the program at Iowa, give him another $1 million pay grade. He was doing some accounting work or whatever for Ohio State this year, or analyst work. And it's a guy that he was an assistant coach with back when they were all in their late 20s and early 30s and working for Ken O'Keefe at Worcester Academy and all that stuff. That seems like the move that Kirk's going to make. And do you think Joe Philbin's going to say no to Kirk? No, I don't think Joe Philbin's going to say no to Kirk. If Brian Ferentz didn't get his back to change and listen, it's not going to happen.
Dana Holgerson's available.
Dana is right there. Right there,
Iowa
available.
Native, Power 5 head coach experience, one of the great offensive coordinators, one of the great offensive minds of the last 25 years. He's right there. And then you could...
Let's say if you were our friends over at Wild Rose and that, what would you put the odds on that Dana Holgerson gets hired by Kirk? Plus 9,000?
He would make the board just to get sucker money. That would be it. Somebody's like, oh, that's the value play.
Right.
Williams says he's like an Iowa guy.
Yeah. Colorado for national championship, that kind of early season numbers. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously nothing from today's bowl game that's much worth debating and discussing in the grand scheme of things, because I think we're all kind of in the grand scheme of things right now. And I just wish I could be more optimistic. I'm an optimist. That is my nature, is to find the bright side. I can't find the bright side with Iowa's offense looking forward. I thought last year was going to be the bottom, and the year before last year when they also went 10-4 and they lost to Kentucky in a bowl game. That podcast, if you go back and listen to that, I was pissed. I was down. Little did I know that offense probably could have hung in enough today to keep Iowa in the game. When Iowa was down 21-0, Deacon Hill turned the ball over inside his own 10. He had another fumble that set them up. I mean, and Tennessee was moving the ball. I'm not trying to say Iowa was stonewalling them, but it's a 7-0 game, and Deacon Hill threw an interception in the end zone when Iowa was on the 2-yard line. So this thing, even with Spencer Petras at quarterback, I think Iowa had a shot in this game. Still would have probably lost. Tennessee's a more talented team on both sides of the ball, but it's just like, I don't know, Chris, man. I really don't know. And
the one problem I would have if I'm an Iowa fan today is because all the other stuff doesn't matter, right? Like none of that, because Brian Ferentz is gone, whatever. The issue I would have is that Ferentz appears to be one of those guys that still actually values these bowl games. Like they still matter to him, and he's talked very openly about it. A lot of these old school guys are like that. Mac Brown's like that, whereas you watch some of these, they don't care. Like Mike Norvell in Florida State, they just literally showed up to the Orange Bowl and that's it. It's all about the portal. It's all about next year already. And you went head to head with no opt-outs with a team that was playing a true freshman quarterback that had never played before. And half their defense was out and they just beat the shit out of you. That just showed. I'm not rubbing it in. My point is that's how far Iowa is away from being one of those. Some people will say that. And the point I make is unless they have big changes, there's more and more Tennessee-like teams that are coming to the Big Ten. I've been trying to make this point for a couple years now. And the Big Ten West, man, you're just not going to be able to hide there with all these like-minded teams anymore. And this was just another example of it. Like, and who knows? Maybe Heupel was really into today's game. I do think that they took this as a huge opportunity for this new quarterback. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised. They may have told Joe Milton, hey, you know what, man? Thanks for all you've done. We'd like to give him this to propel us into next season. I don't know that, obviously, but it felt like Tennessee was using this for that purpose to really build upon next year. But the fact remains, that was a shell of a Tennessee team that went 8-4 this year.
Yeah, and Iowa still only managed 173 yards of offense, and 51 of those were Marco Lainez rushing yards. Yeah. And against a skeleton crew defense from Tennessee. All these things you bring up just continue to make me more frustrated, but it is what it is. And I do think the Bulls, I think, still matter from a standpoint of if you're thinking about developing, giving young people opportunities, especially in this era of opt-outs. It gives you almost an additional spring ball, and those guys are actually going to get a reward and be able to go out there and play. So I think there is merit and value from that standpoint. From an Iowa standpoint, as far as the portal, a lot of these other programs are already moving on. They're already big active players in the portal. I think before the kickoff today, Iowa had like 87 scholarship players that could potentially be back next year, and only 85 scholarships. So I think that number is going to change here pretty quick, and Iowa will have a couple of holes to fill. But I don't think Iowa is going to have a number of holes to fill.
Their timeline's so different. Like it's impressive to me. It's impressive to me that they still value because of the second semester thing. Most of these guys who are going to transfer have already gone.
I would say this: if there is any type of silver lining relative to forward looking right now, it is that you see the Florida State game and how many opt-outs they had. You look at all these Bulls; these teams are probably all averaging 6 to 10 opt-outs. A club. Iowa had the worst offense that any of us can ever remember in the modern era of football. And Iowa didn't really have many opt-outs. The opt-outs they've had are guys that are transferring out of the program. It's like 2 or 3, and they weren't really, big contributors. The culture within that program, it remains incredibly strong, despite the malaise of the offense. And these guys, Jay Higgins is coming back. He's signing up for more of it. Luke Lachey coming back, signing up for more of it. It just speaks to the culture there in that program. These players love and respect Kirk Ferentz at an incredibly high level, even if the rest of the outside world from the fandom's kind of getting bored and tired a little bit, even though I think most people still respect Kirk. The culture is incredibly strong. I would also say that for Georgia. Georgia didn't have a ton of opt-outs for that game, despite, they ain't coming back to play for a bowl game that wasn't a playoff when they won back-to-back. That's a really strong culture too. So that's the only silver lining I've got.
Yeah, I don't think most people are looking for it. It'll be an interesting couple of weeks, though. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to start to hear more about the coordinator stuff, and then our show will start to get really fun because we don't have to talk about football anymore.
Oh, baby. I'm going to write out a list of off-season topics.
Yes.
And
you should
yep. I'm going to write a long list, and then you can look over them, choose, I don't want to do this. Yeah, okay, let's do that. And then you say, okay. And we can kind of plan out like our schedule so we can both do a little more research on some of these things we're going to talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to the deep end of the pool.
Well, and believe it or not, we don't ever talk about this. Our show gets really good numbers. Like it get a lot of people listen to this. So, and I don't know, like I'm sure there's some OGs that just like to hear you talking Hawkeyes, but I think most people like the banter from the feedback.
I think, I mean, as we both know, we both done this long enough. When you have two people in a show, it really, really can click if both people trust each other, and you have to have that trust because you're gonna give each other crap, and that's when it's good. So you know what? I'm gonna get the guy from Skinwalker Ranch lined up. We'll have him on, and away we go, baby. Away we go.
Hell yeah! I'm fired up for the Skinwalker Ranch episode. I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
John,
by the way,
happy New Year.
Hey, to you as well. Real quick follow up. Haven't had any spookiness around the house since you and I talked that one time.
Really? So you think that the spirit knows we're on to it?
Either that or just wants to play nice. It appreciated the invitation that I gave it. You know? We'll see.
I still want to get my hunting friends down to Kansas City to do a little scope of the house. Do you think your wife would be okay with that? Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Why not? Don't you want to know what's going on there?
No, I'm not threatened. I feel no malevolence.
Here's what'll happen. I'm gonna get Velisca Johnny lined up. Okay. And
I don't want any Velisca crap around here.
I'm gonna swing by Velisca Johnny's place. He'll probably be down there at the Shittily D in Clarendon. We'll pick him up on the way down to Highway 71. And we'll just get a couple of his buddies from the Malvern Manor. And me and the boys are going to do a little road trip down to Kansas City.
You know what? Within 2 blocks of my house, there is a legit replica of the Ghostbusters station wagon. So that's what I think when you guys are going to trip down here. But let's maybe not just surprise me like that, because I'd hate to see you make a trip and all that. But hey, wait. Are you going to spend some time here?
Yeah. Would your wife let me and Velisca Johnny and the guys from Malvern all stay at your house?
No, I wouldn't either.
Hey, sweetheart, we're going to do a hunt. So you're going to have to leave for 2 nights.
You know what? She's going to be gone for 3 weeks in February. So what mama don't know, don't hurt her, right? But I got the 14-year-old here, so she is a narc. Yeah. She's a freaking narc.
Yeah, she's the problem.
Right.
All right. Love you, man. Happy New Year.
Too, buddy.
Thanks to everybody for listening. We appreciate it. And hope you enjoyed the game today, I guess. That sounded really jerky coming from an Iowa State. Hey, but I took my lumps earlier this week, too. So, you know what? Screw it. Have a great 2024.